Good morning. Good morning. How you guys doing? All right. I like that enthusiasm. It's a good day, folks. It's a good day. So last night we're in study of Isaiah. We have jumped all the way to chapter 40 today. You are in if you have been following along with our reading plan, which is on our Church Center app. If you don't know how to get the Church Center app, go to the App Store and find Church Center, and then find Crosswinds Church. Make sure you get the right Crosswinds Church, and put it on your phone, and that allows you access to some things, calendars things that are going on, but it also gives you access to this reading plan that we're in. I believe if you're reading along, I think you're probably in chapter 24, so you're way behind as far as what I'm preaching on this morning. So if you have your Bibles, want to turn to Isaiah chapter 40, that's where we're actually going to be this morning. There's some 31 verses in chapter 40, which we're not going to get to every single one of them today, but we are going to bounce through a couple of them. So chapter 40 actually takes this turn, which I'm really thankful for. I don't know if you've been reading along in Isaiah. The first 39 chapters are pretty hard to read. They're discouraging. They actually, it's like, oh man, well, this doesn't make me feel good at all. Because what's happening is the Lord is, through the prophet Isaiah, is pronouncing judgment on the people of Judah because of their disobedience. And I think one of the things that we have to be reminded of as we're reading through the book of Isaiah is that not only is God a God of mercy and forgiveness, but he's also a God of justice. Right? That when he asks us to do something, when he gives us a manual on how we're supposed to live, he actually wants us to live by it. And the problem is that we've become a culture that we want to pick and choose what we want to live by. Right? That if it doesn't align with how we feel or how we think, then we're like, well, that in part's not important. We'll just take that. It'd be like ripping out parts of the Bible because we think that those parts aren't important. And so I think that's the challenge to us. But what I love about chapter 40 is that now the prophet Isaiah actually has some pretty good news for the nation of Israel, for Judah. And so what I hope will happen this morning is that we'll be reminded of who God is and what he does, what he has done and what he wants to do in the days to come. All right? So I'm sitting here looking at it. I don't see many smiles on your face this morning. Come on, let's smile a little bit, right? It's a good day. You're alive, right? And if you were dead, it'd be better. But you're alive. God's given you another day. He's given you a purpose. He's given you a calling. It says, he wrote in the book of James that life is but a mist. It's but a vapor. It's here today and gone tomorrow. So why not enjoy the day that we have? Regardless of what's going on in our life, regardless of what may be happening, let's lean into the Lord and let's find joy in him. And I think that's what's happening in the book of Isaiah. In chapter 40, God takes this switch. He's like, okay, I've given you enough mess. I've given you enough of the judgment piece of it. Now I'm going to tell you who I really am and what I'm going to do. And so I'm really encouraged. The next 8 chapters are really encouraging and so on. So I'm really excited about that. So just suffer through it till you get to 40. Okay, suffer through it. So Ashley and I were laying in bed last night. We were talking about all these things that God had done. Right? We're looking back over our last year. She actually got out her journals. She loves to journal. And she got out some journals of before we even started dating. And she started reading, like, I don't know if you know it, but Ashley was actually engaged before me. She was engaged and she fell down and broke her tailbone her junior year in college, right? Her junior year in college, she fell down the stairs, broke her tailbone, and this dirtbag of a guy never showed up. He was a jerk, right? Well, guess who called her? Me. And I didn't know her. I mean, I knew her as a friend, but we weren't like, I had just come out of a relationship. She was in a relationship. I wasn't trying to break up the engagement. I promise you. Okay, I promise. No, I'm serious. I wasn't. Ashley, was I? No. She fell down, broke her tailbone. The guy never responded. One of my friends said, hey, I don't know if you know, but Ashley fell and broke her tailbone. I called her just to see how she's doing. We hang up the phone, and her mom says, man, that guy's going to make a good husband someday to somebody. She didn't know it was going to. That's right? Memo had been praying that she would meet somebody on the beach because we went to spring break together. Right? We were just friends. We were actually on the beach together. And Mamaw had been praying that. My mother-in-law had been praying that. So we're talking about that, and I'm thinking about all the things that God orchestrated and how cool it is that she broke her tailbone. Because that was great for me. Right? We ended up going out on a date, and we went out just hanging out. And then, it was really cool just to go back and read all those moments of how God was just doing all these things to bring us this place in life. And then we're thinking, man, what God did 15 years ago. I don't know if you know it, but in a couple of weeks, we're actually we will have been here almost 16 years, but 15 years as a church. And we think back to that moment when God said, hey, I want you to quit your job. I want you to pack up the family in a Penske truck and pull in the car behind. And I want you to move to Wilmington with no idea what you're doing and tell you to plant church. And I can imagine, we just started thinking about that. We have this picture of us and our 3 kids sitting out in front with a battleship on the back. And I'm thinking, man, how much water is under the bridge, but how faithful God has been all along the way. How he has showed up in so many instances. And I wish I could just give you time after time after time where God just showed up in small ways. There was one way back before we even moved that we were in New York, and I was a youth pastor not making a whole lot of money. And I can remember coming to a time where we weren't sure where the grocery money. We didn't have money for food. And all of a sudden we went to the front door and there was a bag of groceries hanging on our door. Because that's how much God cared. And that's how much he continues just to show up. And I think we have to be careful that we don't miss the small things that God is doing. I love that song because what that song just said is that time is in your hands. Time is in your hands. And what we have to be able to do is realize that we're but a mist, but a vapor. We're here today, gone tomorrow. And we have to leverage the time. I was talking to just one of the guys here earlier this morning before the service started, and we were talking about the situation with Allie, and I'll talk to you about that in a minute. But I said, when we get together now, it's different. You realize that you leverage the time that you have. Hey, listen, if you don't like your family, remember that you have to leverage the time that you have with your family because it might be short.
That's exactly right.
You have to leverage the time because it might be short. The people that are closest to you. Man, remember that you're but a mist here today, gone tomorrow, and that God is at work in every situation. Even when we can't see what he's doing, God's still at work. And that's what Isaiah is reminding us of here. And so there's this major shift. So let me ask you 2 questions. Because what Isaiah was actually doing is he was talking to the people. And here's the 2 questions that I believe we come out of this passage in the first 39 chapters is where are you, God? There was this judgment that was on them. There were things that were happening. I mean, there were so many things that were happening. Destruction was happening all around them. All kinds of things were going on. And I believe their questions were where are you, God? And I believe if we're being really honest, we could probably sit in the situation today and say, okay, where is God? And I'm just going to I'm not going to get there yet. And then I think part of what Isaiah was saying, or the people were saying to Isaiah, has God forgotten us? Has God forgotten us? And because of all that he was prophesying, can you imagine being Isaiah, a prophet, going to the people of Judah and telling them what God's going to do, and them just ignoring him and not paying any attention? Because I believe part of their not paying attention was because where is God? And God, has he forgotten us? Because we're his chosen people. And say, God said, no, I told you what to do and you just disobeyed it. And so now justice comes, because the book of Isaiah is based on two things. This one is based on God's justice, and it's also based on God's mercy. And verse 40 is when we start to see this shift from God's judgment to God's mercy, which, to be really honest with you, we should be very thankful for today. Because although we like to point the finger at Jerusalem and Judah, the people, the nation of Israel, they got freed from Egyptian slavery. They went out into the wilderness, and they spent 40 years in the wilderness when they should have only spent 11 days. And to be honest with you, we're a lot like they are. Yes. And so Isaiah chapter 40. Isaiah chapter 40, I'm going to start because I want to kind of just build some foundation. Isaiah chapter 40 verse 1 says this: comfort my people. How awesome is that? Right? We just come out of this whole thing on judgment, where God's pronouncing judgment on them. And the first things he says in chapter 40, this switch: comfort my people. Speak tenderly to Jerusalem and proclaim to her that her hard service has been completed. It's over and done. That her sin has been paid for. That she has received from the Lord's hand double for all her sins. Man, I love that. I love that. Because that is such a clear picture of God's mercy and his grace coming out of a season of judgment and difficulty. And so here's what I want to say to you this morning. If you are in the midst of a difficult time or walking through a struggle, I believe that there will come a time where God will say, comfort my people. And I love just the thought of that. And then jump to verse 8. It says, as the grass withers and the flower, I can't read this morning. As the grass withers and the flowers fall, but the word of the Lord endures forever. I felt like I couldn't get through chapter 40 without actually us at least reading that verse and being reminded that his word has stood the test of time, and it will continue to stand the test of time. And no matter how people try to get rid or change the word of God, it cannot be gotten rid of or changed. It is what it is. And then jumping to verse 10. See, the sovereign Lord comes with power, and he rules with a mighty arm. See, his reward is with him, and his recompense accompanies him. He tends to his flock like a shepherd. He gathers the lambs in his arms, and he carries them close to his heart. He gently leads those that have young. Who has measured the waters in the hollow of his hand, and with the breath of his hand marked off the heavens? Who has held the dust of the earth in a basket, or weighed the mountains on the scales, and the hills in a balance? Who can fathom the Spirit of the Lord, or instruct the Lord as his counselor? Whom did the Lord consult to enlighten him? And who taught him the right way? Who was it that taught him knowledge, or showed him depth of understanding? And here's what I believe that God says in those verses before we jump to the latter part of this chapter is that God doesn't change. God does not change. He is the same today that he was yesterday. He is the same God that created the earth. He's the same God that has been in every one, whether we believe it or not, whether we can see it or not. He's been in every single circumstance, in every single moment. And as Ashley and I were talking about that last night, we were reminded there were so many things that, one, we didn't see, and there were so many things that we don't even remember that God did, because he did so many things over the course of these last 20-some years, almost 27 years together. And 16, almost 15 years of planting Crosswinds Church. God has not changed. He is who he is. He's the same yesterday and today. And as a reminder, his word does not change either, although people try to change it. And we talked a little bit about that last week, is that we must be very careful that we're not listening to what Isaiah was telling the people about false prophets. About false prophets. And so that's the first reminder to us this morning, that God does not change.
That's right. He does not.
Okay? All right. Now jump ahead to verse 21. Verse 21 says this: Do you not know? Have you not heard? Has it not been told to you from the beginning? Here's what I think. I think sometimes we forget. Right? We get so into the heat of the battle. We get so caught up in the things that are going on around us that we lose sight. And I think if we're not careful, those things can overpower our lives and cause us to forget all that God has done, because that's what the enemy wants. He wants us to become focused on what's in front of us and forget what God has already done. Do you not know? Have you not heard? Has it not been told you from the beginning? Have you not understood since the earth was founded? He sits enthroned above the circle of the earth, and its people are like grasshoppers. He stretches out the heavens like a canopy and spreads them out like a tent to live in. He brings princes to naught and reduces rulers to nothing. Okay, here, let me just remind you that Jesus is the King. Jesus is the King. So no matter who thinks they're in authority in our world, ultimately Jesus is the King. And we have to keep that in mind. Gosh, what verse was on? Okay, verse 24. No sooner are they planted, no sooner are they sown, no sooner do they take root in the ground, than he blows on them and they wither. And a whirlwind sweeps them away like chaff. To whom will you compare me? Or who is my equal, says the Holy One. Lift up your eyes and look to the heavens, who created all these. He who brings out the starry host one by one and calls forth each of them by name. Because of his great power and his mighty strength, not one of them is missing. Why do you complain, Jacob? Why do you say, Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord. My cause is disregarded by my God. Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired and weary. And his understanding no one can fathom. He gives strength to the weary. He increases the power of the weak. Even youth grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. Okay, now I want us to read verse 31 together. You ready? But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. I mean, can you imagine going through, and maybe you are imagining that because you are actually in that season where you feel like everything is just upon you. It's on you. It just feels like the weight. And what I love about this is I believe that the people of Judah, they felt the judgment of God. And all of a sudden now it's like he just released them. And this weight is just lifted off of their shoulders in this moment because they're reminded of who God is. Okay, so let's pick this passage apart for just a moment. The first thing that I believe that God shows us in this passage is that God has not abandoned his people.
That's right.
That's the reminder. God has not abandoned his people. Okay, so it's a reminder to us this morning that God has not abandoned us. Although there may be times when we feel like it, God has not abandoned us. That God still has a purpose and that God will keep his plan and his promises. You see, because when it seems like God is silent, he is not absent.
That's right.
And so I want to remind you this. When November comes, be reminded of this.
Yes.
Okay? You're like, is this a prophetic word? Maybe. Because I don't know what October and November and December and January and the next year hold. Let's be honest. It's not going to be like it is right now. And we have to be reminded in those moments that God has not abandoned us and that he hasn't lost control. And so when those moments come, we have to stand up and we have to be the people that God's called us to be. We should be the picture of unity. The church should be the picture of unity to a nation that's divided. This is not a political statement. This is what God has called us to. That there are going to be some of you in here that you disagree on some of the things, and that's okay. But we have to be people of unity. We have to be people that show the love of Christ, even in the midst of those conversations and those discussions, that we have to be reminded that Joe Biden is not the king and Donald Trump is not the king and whoever else ends up in that office, they're not the king. Jesus is the king. He's the king. And we have to stay reminded of that even if things get worse, listen, God has never promised us easy. He's never promised us easy. And I don't know what the next year holds. Heck, I don't know what the next 10 years holds. Heck, we might not even be here tomorrow.
That's right.
We're but a mist. We're but a vapor, here today, gone tomorrow. So let's live for what God's called us to today. And let's realize that he hasn't abandoned us regardless of how difficult things may be going on in your life. He hasn't abandoned you. He's still there. He's still working. And he still has a plan. And he still has a promise for his people. Yes, he brings judgment to disobedience. And can you just imagine, there were some people who were living in Judah. There was a small remnant of people who were actually doing the right thing. But they still had to suffer the consequences of what everybody else was doing.
There you go.
But God has not abandoned us. Even when it may seem silent, he's not absent. God is also in this moment because what he's saying to the nation of Israel, what he's saying to Judah is, not only have I not forgotten you, but I've redeemed you. I'm restoring you. I'm bringing comfort into your situation. I have paid. Jesus has paid the price for your sin. Jesus hadn't even come along yet. This was some 400 or 500 years before Jesus ever even came along. And what did he say in verse 1? He said that her sin has been paid for. And so God hasn't abandoned us. I think we have to be reminded of that. We have to be reminded of his mercy and his grace, no matter how much you screwed life up. His grace and his mercy is there to redeem us. We just have to receive what he offers to us this morning. The second thing is God is always present and he knows exactly what we need when we need it.
That's right.
Let me read that again. God is always present, and he knows exactly what we need when we need it, right? Because if he holds the world in the palm of his hand, if he tells the water how far it can come, then I'm pretty sure he knows exactly what I need when I need it. A few years ago, Ashley and I, we had been living here probably 2 years, and we had gone down to one car. We were driving a little white Honda Accord that had quite a few miles on it, and we had 3 kids, stuffing them in the back of this little white Honda Accord. And we had a neighbor friend of ours from New York who called us and said, "Hey, I don't know why, but God told me to give you my van." Excuse me? Like, how did you know that we were struggling with one car? She's like, so I'll be leaving next week and driving the van down. It'll be yours. I'm going to sign the title over to you. And this would have been like in 2009 that this happened. See, God knew exactly what we needed. And that's just one story, right? Look at what he's done for the church. I mean, a few years ago when we were raising money for this building right here, I was 2 weeks away from going back to everybody and saying, "Hey guys, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to give you your money back because this ain't working." And God says, "No, Chris, I'm not done yet." And then he sends a check in the mail for $648,000. And I believe that we're at that same crossroads right now, where we're trusting God with the unknown. You see, because I believe God's always present, and I know he knows exactly what we need when we need it. He has always, listen to me, he has always shown up, and he never forgets. Last thing is this. Michael, you guys go ahead, come out. You see, because I want us to land somewhere this morning. Because that clock says I still got 2 minutes and 45 seconds. Wow. I'm doing great. But I want us to land. Y'all don't make fun of me. All the children's workers are like, yes. I want to land in a place where we listen to the word of God this morning before we leave. You see, because although God reminded us that he's always present, what he said is, in verse 31, he said, "But those who hope in the Lord." Now, what I want you to understand is, if you actually go to the Hebrew part of that, it actually uses the word wait. But if you wait on the Lord, hope and wait, kind of the same thing. The word wait, because here's the point I want to make. When we wait on him, he renews our strength. That's exactly what the verse says, when we wait on him. But too many times, we're too fast. We're too fast. We don't take time to wait. We like our burgers hot and now. But he says to wait. But those who hope, the word wait, or if you go and you look at the Hebrew translation of that verse 31 says to wait on the Lord, which means in Hebrew the Hebrew word is kava, Qavah, kava. And what it means to bind together, to join together, to meet with him, to confidently expect and to trust him. You see what I'm saying? So not only did the Lord remind us of who he is and what he has done, but he's saying, hey, if you want to continue, what he wants to give us exactly what we need, and what we exactly need is we need to come to a place of waiting, binding ourselves together with him, trusting him even when things don't make sense. So this morning, I want you to walk out of here and kava, I want you to wait. Those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength. Boy, that jacked me up this morning. So, one of the ways, you can come get where you at? Come on, Logan. One of the ways that the Lord reminded me of this, some of you guys know that this past Monday, Allie had an appointment at Duke. Allie's been having this back pain. Our daughter Allie, who's 24, married, got a 1-year-old, and she's been having this back pain for some weeks, and so finally just got into the doctor at Duke, and they wanted to see her, so they took her and said, they did CT scans because they wanted to see if maybe it was coming from her liver or her lungs, because if you don't know, Allie's got cancer in her liver and her lungs that right now, thank God, is stable. And we're thanking God for that. They did a CT scan last week and found that that's stable, but weren't sure why that she was having pain in her back. And so when she went to see the doctor, she said, I'm concerned that there's cancer in your bones, in your spine. And so she went to the doctor on Monday, came back, and obviously they called us Monday afternoon and said, oh, can you come back tomorrow for the scan? Couldn't do it while we were there. Come back Tuesday. I drive Allie back up Tuesday afternoon. And I'm sitting in the waiting room. And it's like the Lord just said, wait on me. Bind yourself together with me. Meet with me. And for about an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 20 minutes, I sat out in that waiting room. And I'm like, okay, Lord, I'm just going to wait on you. And if there's anything that we should be taught today, it's that when life throws you a curveball, just wait. We found out on Wednesday that the scan came back totally clean. No, nothing in her bones. It's like the Lord just continues to show himself. And he says, if you'll just wait on me. Because what I love about this, it's not like that waiting is not like you going home and sitting in your seat and just waiting. No, it's an active participation in relationship with Jesus and connecting yourself to him. And that's what I want to challenge you to this morning. Will you close your eyes with me? And will you wait on the Lord right now? Will you connect your heart to his? Even if I know that maybe not everybody here are believers, maybe you've never given your life to Christ, you're not even sure what I'm talking about when I'm saying waiting on the Lord. If I could just encourage you for just a moment to just close your eyes and say, God, I don't understand this, but I want to wait and I want to listen. I want to bind my heart together with yours. I believe what will happen is God will show himself to you. He will reveal to you. Not only has he not changed, but he's been present at every moment. And here's what I want him to do. I want God to show you where he's already shown up. Where is it that God's already shown up in your situation? Where is it that he's already been present? Where is it that he's already shown you who you are? Bind our heart with him. God, bind our hearts with yours. And what I love about that word kava is it means not only am I going to wait, but I'm going to trust God. I'm going to trust him for today. I'm going to trust him for tomorrow. I'm going to trust him for November. I'm going to trust him for December. I'm going to trust him 10 years from now. If he so gives us the ability to live 10 more years, then I'm going to trust him. And that no matter what comes my way, I'm going to trust him. God, help us to walk in the spirit of that this morning. But we wait on the Lord, and you renew our strength. You help us to soar on wings like eagles. You help us to run and not be weary. You help us to walk and not be faint. And this morning, God, we want to trust you and we want to worship you for who you are, for what you've done, and what you're going to do. God, would you reveal yourself to us in this moment? In Jesus' name. Will you stand with me? So I'm going to open up the front, as we always do during the song. And I would love to see some of you come down front just because you want to thank God for what he's done in the past. Okay? Let's worship him for what he has done. During this song, let's be bold enough to say, God, thank you. Because I think sometimes we go through life and we forget to thank him, what he's already done. And then after this song, I'm going to give an opportunity for you to be prayed over by our prayer team if you would love for that to happen. But let's sing a song, Trust in him.